Good evening. Good evening. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. 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 Hello, 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 hello. Sorry for the lateness. I had some kids that didn't want to go to sleep. Still got one with me. So if I do get distracted, uh, just just know. Just know that I got kids and stuff. Yeah, no problem. Man. It's cool. Just wait a few more minutes. Let people propagate. How was everyone's weekend? Did you enjoy it? Not enjoy it? We got Kevin's iPhone and Kevin's iPhone. That's pretty neat. Is Brandon there too? Only 13 people. That's a bit ridiculous. Nobody had anything to say about this weekend? Did you, I I got my one of my old computers back up and running, and was gonna add some of my old GPUs to it so I can start mining them. But I completely missed what I was looking for because I used to have a website that somebody had linked me in our Discord, and it showed like a bunch of altcoins and what you could mine with your GPU, and like what you could convert, where it converted, and what exchanges they're on. And then I lost it, and now like I'm ready to mine, and then now like, I can't. I don't even know what to mine. What's up, Zero DTE? Howdy, 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 everybody. iPhone, iPhone, iPhone. Hello, iPhone. I'm funny. I'm funny. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start out saying, reminding everybody, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Please do your own due diligence. You're responsible for your own actions. Go to onlyoptionstrades.com/disclaimer for the disclaimer of, stuff. This is the lecture where I look over tickers and the indices so we can get a bias for the week. Uh, Maybe lay out any trades that I might see coming up on a screen or on a chart. Currently waiting for SPY to get to that 515 mark. Not quite there yet. I am using TradingView. Just because I enjoy TradingView. That's about it. Somebody's what to mine. Is that what it is? Let me see. What to what to I think so. We'll see. I'll look into that later. Thank you for that. All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good middle of the night. So I'm going to start by looking at the indexes, the index ETFs, SPY, the Qs, diamonds, and IWM. And then I'll go over some of the bigger tickers in the market, just the ones that I feel are going to end up pushing or getting us to where we need to go, or where I think we might be going. And then I will do some requests if you guys or gals or anybody else here. If you have tickers you'd like me to to look at, toss them in the chat, and if we have time, we'll get to them. We'll take a look at BA. How did I come up with 517 as a target? So I am a fan of. There is a trader by the name of Al Brooks. He does a 3-gap system. Well, actually, it's not a 3-gap system. I just made it a 3-gap system, but he teaches that there are there's when gaps happen in the market, there's lots of different kinds of gaps. One of the kinds of gaps is the kind of gap that happens between candles, the wicks. So if I turn this border off, turn that border off, and we can see that the top of this wick here for the October candle and the bottom of the wick for this November candle, there's a gap there. The wicks don't overlap as they do with just about every other candle in the market. As a result, when these happen, they tend to happen in a sequence of 3. If you get the first one over a previous high, you get what's called a breakaway gap. The next one that happens would be the measuring gap. And then the one that happens after that is the exhaustion gap. And they happen typically in 3s. And the name exhaustion indicates that that move has completed, most likely. And it's time to either look for basically a consolidation or a range or a pullback. Now, I enjoy these. I enjoy this system. It's really nice. And the way you measure it is you take a line from the previous swing low up to the middle of your measuring gap, and you duplicate it, and then you project it out to your price target. That's where we got this first price target here. And the 516 here, I do believe this would be just on the monthly. Right. So the 515, 516 price target I have for SPY, we take it from this swing low to the middle of this measuring gap, and then duplicate and project. It puts us right up to 515, 516. So that is how I got that price target. That is what I'm looking at for a move. These moves happen a lot. This isn't something that I just saw in a video or read on a piece of paper and just showing it to you. Yes, this would be the monthly chart. This is something that I see happen all the time on every time frame from a 1 minute to a 1 month. And the accuracy of it, in my opinion, is quite nice. I appreciate the accuracy of it. So still looking for that price target of 115, 116 here on SPY. We are pushing up. This is the monthly. Switch over to the weekly, and we'll see. We took out last week's high and are just trucking along. It wouldn't surprise me if we just keep going. We do have a lot of earnings this week. And if they are continue to be profitable, it doesn't surprise me if we hit that number. So I am looking bullish on the SPY this week. The Q is very similar setup that happened here. The push up, the 3, the consolidation, the push up, the 3. If we go out to the monthly, we see more gaps there. So I'm expecting the Qs to follow SPY. I am bullish on SPY and the Qs. The diamonds also have been ripping. They've been going. We haven't gotten an exhaustion gap here on the monthly yet. So, I'll just draw them out so you can see how they work. Clean some of this up because none of these ever happened. All right, so gap here to here. There's a gap. You can often hear these referred to as fair value gaps. depending on who you're listening to or who you are um, uh, learning from. And then we have the one here to here. This would be our measuring gap. And we haven't gotten an exhaustion gap. They don't need to happen. Like you don't need to get that third gap. Um, hey, Lena. But they do tend to happen. So measure from here to the bot, duplicate. Oops. Duplicate, project, line. It puts the diamonds around 408. Okay. So this month, ending in the month, I'd look for this to push up and to create another gap going into March, and then probably complete in March. So, especially since there's only a few days left. Okay, so diamonds, I'm looking bullish. I'm looking for this to complete. Diamonds are lagging a little far behind, or a little bit behind the spies and the Qs, but they are in fact pushing up. IWM has been ranged for a while here, and it hasn't been able to get over that high. I'm actually expecting it to come back down, but we'll see. Small caps have been showing some really nice strength, but they show strength, they push up, and then they pull back. They show strength, they push up, and they pull back. This last pullback here on the monthly between October and November took out all the stops from the previous months. Then it ran up, and now we're running all the stops from these months, all the way back to August of 2022 is where we're taking liquidity, and we're not able to close over those highs. So something to keep an eye on that I do think we might get a pullback in small caps, which is why I'm seeing I have this this setup looking for a short here on small caps. All right, NVIDIA, just monster pushing away. There's no reason to think that NVIDIA is going to stop, in my opinion, right now. I was really looking forward to pull back after we had this consolidation here, but it never did. And as a matter of fact, it harmonicked, it cup and handled, and then it rocketed. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row that it has done nothing but go up, and volume is going up. So I would assume NVIDIA is going to keep going up. It's in price discovery at this stage. So it's just going to keep going, in my opinion. Now premiums are going to be jacked on this thing, so I would maybe look at AMD's and Intel's, other semiconductor companies that are going to benefit a lot from NVIDIA rocketing up. Speaking of AMD, you notice how NVIDIA is taking off, but AMD is consolidating. It was in this nice triangle, dip to the downside, dip to the upside, dip back down to the dips. It's just dipping and going everywhere. This was a nice, I mean, I'm looking at this. I haven't seen this for a week, but this was a nice big bull bar right here. Like they pushed it up. I think it wants 185. It'll probably get there this week. I'd look for AMD to try 185. Now, as far as like what that looks like for a trade, I mean, I'd look at that 173, 174 entry. Still looks pretty nice. Didn't quite get there on Thursday. Pulled back on Friday. I think it'll try to get there this week. I think AMD will definitely try 185, in my opinion. I think Costco is on the list. If it's not, it's not. I'll add it. All right. So AMD, feeling like I think it wants 185. So I'm feeling bullish on AMD. Apple, I have not actually been feeling very bullish on Apple. This thing is ranged right now. It's just basically moving sideways in this area. Okay. So it's actually showing a lot of weakness in comparison to the rest of the market. So if take a look at Apple's chart right here, this is Apple's weekly. All right. And take a look at SPY's weekly. Like the rest of the S&P is going up. All of tech is going up. Boomer stocks are going up. Apple is not. So we've got a divergence. We've got Apple not making those highs while the rest of the market is running to those highs. So that, in my opinion, could be looking at a possible larger pullback on Apple. And I think what I think might happen is we might get that big push on the SPYs and Qs, and we'll get that big push up, and then something like Apple is going to end up weighing it down, and then we'll see that pullback, which, in my opinion, we need. I mean, the indexes have been going on a rocket for the last couple of weeks, so they could really use a cool off time, at least like ranging and going sideways for a little bit. But right now, Apple is not making those highs, and Apple, although it was reduced in the size of the ETFs, is still a big player in the market. So I've got Google and Bank of America on the list. I don't have Bank of America on the list. I will add Bank of America. Then I will move it up here with my bank stocks. Amazon pushing up, holding that gap right there on the weekly. Holding it, dipping in, broadening. Got a nice broadening formation right here. So if we look at this on a 1 hour, we can see how we're just bouncing back and forth here. So right now we're ranged in a slight broadening formation. Nothing super major here. But I would actually expect this to come back down, honestly. So kind of doing what I thought it would do. It's pushing up and then pull back and then try one more time for a third time to try and break out of the broadening formation here. So I would actually be leaning more bearish on Amazon this week and looking for a pullback, unless it breaks out. Something to watch, definitely, because it could break out here to the upside over one, call it 176, 177. It could definitely break out and then start its bull run before pulling back one more time. So keep an eye on Amazon if it breaks out over that trend line. If it wants to push, I'd look for it in the morning. I'd look for a big move, not like small body candles moving its way slowly over that line. I'd want to see a big move, lots of volume, big push over, big nice white or red or green candle right over that line for a nice solid breakout. If not, I would definitely look for it to pull back probably into the 165s at least. Meta to the moon. Looking at the 1 hour, it's just chilling, right? It's not doing a whole lot of anything right now, which is fine. We don't always need to be melting faces, but it is sitting there, moving sideways in an upward formation. It would not surprise me if this thing continues to go. The last couple of weeks, I have been saying Meta to the moon. There's still a ridiculous amount of money in their options chain. I've been following a shark or a whale for a while, and they've turned essentially $1 million or $10 million into about $176 million, and they just keep rolling it forward. They started buying 300 calls back when Meta dipped into like below 100 and then came back out. They started with 300 calls, and then they pushed them out to 600 calls, and then they just pushed those 600 calls out to 950 calls. So there's a lot of money in Meta, and people are thinking that it's going to keep going, and I believe that they are right. I think it's just going to keep rocketing up. So I'm bullish on Meta. Looking at the 1 hour, it does seem to be ranged in this nice flag pattern. We do have 1, 2, 3 hits on the top, 1, 2.5 on the bottom. So I would look for a possible breakout of the 500 here on Meta, see if it can get a nice push up. If not, I would trade it down to the bottom here. I would actually. So normally I could say I'd trade this down to the bottom of this range. Set like a stop over that high, right? Not the greatest risks to reward on that, But given this scenario, how many times we bounced here on the 1 hour, I would actually look for a breakout and then a run. So I would look for a breakout of that trend line. I would adjust my stop accordingly, and I would look for a run to at least over 500. I could even, this is a big flag. This could be ready for its next leg up, which would put it in the 530 area. So keep an eye on Meta as well. Meta, Amazon, definitely looking like they could make a nice breakout move. Microsoft has been a little choppy here. You got the big push up, the gaps, but it hasn't been able to seal the deal. There's a lot of inefficiency in the chart. Here we've got some gaps down here. We've got some volume imbalances here, and I think Microsoft wants a pullback, and that might be one of those things where maybe we just see Microsoft go sideways for a little bit, while the rest of tech pumps up, and then this in addition to like Apple will be what pulls the markets down for that pullback, because I'd really like to see a pullback into like 375, maybe even 370 before I see it continue back up. I would like to see that leg down and then the pushback. So Microsoft, I'm not really, let's take a look at the 1 hour. Not really. This doesn't feel like anything that I'd want to take a trade on right now on Microsoft. So maybe if it gets down to around 397, look for a long back to the upside. But this very much feels like it could be like a possible head and shoulders type of scenario right here. Looking for, yeah, we'll just do this right there, right there, right there, So look for that neckline break and a push to the downside. Netflix, right at that spot where I'd be looking to take a short. I wouldn't mind seeing it pull back to 500, but it does have this nice big gap here on the weekly that it chomped through there for a few weeks before pushing up, but it never got the big rip to the upside. It never got a big move to the upside. So I think it might want to pull back down here into 530 before it wants to take a push up to the top. Boeing, nice channel to the downside on the weekly here. Just keeps going, filling out this monthly gap. It's holding it though. See that? So this gap from the monthly, it's holding it. It keeps popping up. It dips below it, pops right back up. Dips below it, pops right back up. I thought I had Tesla on my list, but I apparently do not. So I'll add Tesla. Thank you. Lockheed. Yeah, I'll take a look at Lockheed. NOC. Sure. But yeah, so it's channeling down. We're at the bottom of that channel. I think you might want to make a push up, since this is 4 times it's wicked below this gap, and here's the monthly gap that I'm talking about here, from here to here. So it was a bearish gap that it gapped back over, and now we're dipping into it again on considerably lower volume. February is almost over, and look how much lower volume is there. SMCI, I would expect to go down. I'm not even going to look at that right now. I'm pretty sure it's just going to go down. This month we've already broken below January's low, so maybe we do see that continuation to the downside, but we're holding it right now. So Boeing, I'm not really, I wouldn't take much of a trade on this right now, just because it's at a pivotal point where I don't know if it's going to break to the downside or bounce to the upside. On the daily, volume is going up, so maybe it could try to get that break to the downside, but I would maybe day trade like a close below 200. If it can get a close below 200 the next day, I'd maybe day trade some puts, or maybe even swing some puts on Boeing. Coin, got this nice push up here. Wasn't able to seal the deal. It's coming back down inside week last week. I would really like a nice move to the downside here, and I would look for it to break last week's low and push into the previous week's low. It's about a 2.4 risk to reward there. Looking for that move below 160 down to 136. That could happen in a day as it's bouncing here in this area. 80% of breakouts fail, though. At least that's what they tell me. So it is technically ranged in this area. So maybe the smarter trade would be to trade it back to the upside if it approaches 161 again. Either way, I'm not going to be trading coin right now. I don't really like this setup. Maybe I would trade a break to the downside of 160. Roku hit the stop. Unfortunate. Hit that stop too. Unfortunate. See, this was an instance where we were looking for the price target that was projected on the 3 gaps. We got the push up, but we got an exhaustion gap. And then instead of pushing up to the price target, it just reversed and came back down. Tagged that exhaustion gap on the way back down. So see, we got the push up here, made the exhaustion gap, reversed, came back down, dipped at the breakaway and the measuring here, came back up, got rejected by the exhaustion gap, and then dumped all the way down. All the way back down to our entry, almost. So I'm glad that I took profits on this nice push up. Glad I didn't hold until the end, but it is what it is. So looking on the monthly here, feels like it wants to pull back even further. I would expect it to try and get back to this volume imbalance here, right around 56. Disney. My daughter's here. Disney with the breakout of the down channel. I would expect it to try these highs. My price targets would be that high, around 118, and then 126. This is a monthly chart. So looking at the weekly, not something that I would day trade that. I would swing trade that. I'd be looking at a pullback. We got one gap there, one big gap here. Yeah, definitely look for a retry of this trend line here, right around 100. I'd like to see some buyers show up at 100 and push us back up. But volume is dying off here on the weekly these last 2 weeks. Got the big push up to the upside, and then volume dying off. So that feels nice and bullish. Got the close above there. So I would rather wait for a pullback to 100 and then buy some longs. That would be the trade that I'd be looking at on something like Disney on a setup like this. Definitely think it wants to make more of a pullback before going up, though. Feels like it wants to make that pullback. So I would wait for the pullback. And then I would long probably coming out of 100. Nice mental area back up to 120 or 118. And then continuation up to 126 or so. The Googs. I mean, we're in a long-term uptrend, but it's trying to pull itself back. So the short trade actually got stopped out. We're in a breakout measuring exhaustion, the price target, the pullback. Definitely feels like it wants to continue pulling back here. The issues that they might be having with Elon right now could be a catalyst for that pullback. It'll be interesting to see how they perform this week. But overall uptrend, but it looks like it's trying to reverse. We are in a short-term downtrend right now. So I'd look for some more possibly some more. I mean, the trend is to the downside. I would look for some more pullback in Google. And I'd love to see it back around 130. I think that's a fair price for Google. And if it gets below that, I think we would definitely see some buyers. Cisco not really getting the rub from the rest of the semiconductor sector. Got the break to the upside, the slap back down, and then the slap down to this gap or this wedge to the downside. Filled its gap, and now it's pulling back to. I think it wants 44. Honestly, um, unless Cisco's got something in the works, uh, I think that this just has more downside in its future. It wouldn't surprise me. At least I think it wants 46 again, but I think it wants that 44 mark as well. Goldman on the broadening formation back to the upside still hasn't broken out, so I'm still waiting for it. It finally got the close above this November high that I had been watching. Finally got the close last week, so that might be the push it needs to go. I mean, that's a double hammer on the daily. Oofta. And maybe want to pull back. Let's see. It's a nice little area for a long, in my opinion. It pulls back into there. Very nice risk to reward. Very short stop on that. Interesting. Yeah, I'll take a look at SPLK. SPLK. And zoom. All right. Morgan, probably looking at a little bit more weakness. We got the completion to the downside on the short, so we can go ahead and remove that. Not really seeing anything on Morgan Stanley that I'd be willing to take a trade on. Checking out Berg B, got the breakout, the big push up. I don't know what's in future for Berkshire right now with the death of Charlie Munger. I don't know what the old man wants to do with this. So he's he's been touting Charlie as like the person who basically ran the place. So and had the ideas. I mean, just what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing dying volume on the weekly as price is pushing up. So unless we get some sort of I mean, we're already at exhaustion gap level. I think it would be a good spot to look for a pullback in banks here. It didn't even get the close above 420 there. AMD I hit earlier. You can go back, but basically AMD, whatever. I'll just go over it again. AMD is getting this like little wonkiness here. I would look for a pushback up to 185, in my opinion. All right. Bank of America ranged right now. Got the break to the downside of that channel. Bounced at the weekly gap there. Filled it. Bounced right back up into the channel. Feels very much like it wants to continue up. I would expect it to continue up. I like Bank of America. It's one of those stocks that I enjoy holding and trading, mostly because it, like in my opinion, it just moves. It moves nicely. It moves slowly. You can turn 30% on it pretty quickly. Gapperoonie. 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 I mean, technically, there's a gap right here. It's just not. It's not very big. Where? Come on now. Let's go. So technically there's a gap there that could be your exhaustion gap. I would be using this as an exhaustion gap actually. So what does that mean? That means that maybe it just moves sideways along 33 here before pushing back up. The smarter trade would be to wait for it to come down to the bottom of the channel, then trade it back to the top of the channel. Or wait for a breakout and then trade the breakout. But right now, I'm not seeing anything that's signaling me to get into a trade on Bank of America as far as a day trade or even a swing trade right now, other than just buying shares and holding on to them, which is, in my opinion, a good idea. Intel got the big push up, hit the price target, pulled back, gap to the downside, is rejecting that gap. I would expect this to pull back more, probably into 40 on Intel. There is some big money on Intel's 50s, and they might be short and they might be long, or they might be both for April 19th. So just keep an eye on that. It could just as easily rip itself back to the upside here. Because on the monthly, that looks like a breakout and a retest, essentially. Just on the weekly and the daily, it's a bit different there. So something to keep an eye on. Data dog in along, trying to push up. Boeing, I did earlier. DKNG, I'm expecting some just sideways action here on DraftKings. It got over that weekly gap here. I would expect it to just move sideways for right now. So I'm expecting chop on DKNG. Coke, I want to see a push up to 65. I think it wants 65 at the very least. Got the break to the downside, the bounce at the gap, and now the push back up. And I think we're going to see one of those bump and runs where it took a break to the downside just to rep back up to the upside. And I think right now I am in a Coke long. I think based on whatever your port size is, you could probably get at least, 90 days worth of time and look for it to shoot to at least 65. That's just my opinion. PayPal, garbage pail. I don't think this thing's going anywhere, honestly, other than maybe down. But I mean, I don't like their chart. I haven't really heard anything good about their company. Pretty obvious downtrend, hitting new lows. I would expect it for another leg to the downside here based on this recent price action, especially that big bar right here. Try to get the big bull bar to the back up to the upside, and then the big red bar just came down and smacked it. So I would expect it to continue to the downside, especially if it breaks under that 55 mark right there and continues down. Qualcomm hasn't gotten the break over that high. I don't want to take a long on it until it does. So until it can get the break over with a nice big body candle, a big push up, maybe into like 161, 162, get a nice close above that get a nice close above this July high, then I'd be looking at, maybe wanting to take a long on it. But right now, I don't know if it wants to do it. And it's tried its threatened 3 times and it hasn't been able to make it yet. So sitting on Qualcomm, waiting for it to break over that high with some momentum. Shopify at the bottom of this weekly channel. I think this would be a good one to take a long on and trade to the top of the channel. And I would put a stop relatively close, right below last week's low. What's that look like on a daily? Is that Friday's low? Yeah, I'd put a stop right at Friday's low. Maybe maybe a few ticks below Friday's low, just because the range on this trade would have the risk reward to widen that stop a little bit. And then I'd look for a move back up to the upside. That's what I'd be looking at on Shop. Sub Norbert. Square. Big rip up. Completed the trade that never really panned out because I was looking for a pullback into 54 before it tried to get back up to 80, and it just shot up to 80 last week anyway. So that daily candle is weak Yeah, I can go ahead and delete all this stuff since it's already over. I mean, that's a big weak candle. It got that big push up and then the big push down. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. Yeah, see, it never got the close above these highs. It got the push above them, but it never got the close. So I can't be bullish on it yet. I can't be bullish on it yet until it gets at least over this last highest high right here. Okay. At least over 81, and we'll call it 81.50 just to be safe. Gets the close over that, and then maybe I'd be bullish on Square. But right now, it's just sitting ranged. I mean, it got that great earnings, and that great earnings wasn't even enough to break it out on a long-term chart. So looking at the daily, that just screams like it wants to come back down and fill that gap. So that's what I would be looking like on Square. Toast, I really like. I've really been liking this company more and more. The more I look into it, the more I am adding shares. Really, I think this company is kind of cool in the way that they do point of sale systems for restaurants and allow customers to check out basically via their phone and not even have to worry about bringing a bill up to the server or anything like that. And then they do like some nicer point of sale stuff for restaurants too than a lot of their competition. So I really think that this is a pretty big discount down here around 14, and I still think it's a good deal at 21. Last week was an inside week. I think this thing might want to make a break to the upside, but this is a really nice middle candle. It could go either way for a nice trade either way. But if it gets another pullback, I'd be glad to just add some more shares and sit on them because I like it. It did get to the push back into this channel, so it would make sense that it wants to make a push to the upside of that channel. I don't know, probably manipulation. Tesla down channel at the bottom of it, getting the push back up. The rejection at the middle of that gap has me concerned that it might want to make another low here around 168. So it never got the push over this midline for the, like, it stopped right at it. Let's check that out on like a 1 hour. Push above in pre-market, and then the pull back, then the solid rejection. So I think this thing might want to come back down at least to 175, I think, in the next couple of weeks. It would make sense to me, especially if it gets a break below 180 or 190. So feeling bearish on Tesla. VRT, get the wonky price action on the earnings there. Really don't know what to think about that. That was some really big gaps or really big wick into that exhaustion gap. Chart wise, I would be expecting this thing to roll over at least a little bit, maybe into 50, 52, or staying ranged above 56. But it's completed the move, and now it's getting the push up. So, yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know if I'd want to take a trade on VRT. I actually also don't know enough about the company that I'd want to hold on to it. Zom looking for the long here. You could go ahead and shore up that stop to the bottom here of this, just below this 50% line. I think Exxon wants to make a run at 120. I think it wants to make that run here in the few days. CLSK. I'll add it. Delbert, Delta Airlines got the breakout inside day. Definitely something to watch if it wants to make the break to the downside and retest that trend line, or if it wants to make a break to the upside of Friday's price action for a push to the upside. But what I would be watching again would be the push over that previous swing high. If you can get that push over that 42.70 mark with a nice big body, then great. But right now it got the breakout in a very unconvincing breakout on the weekly. The volume is lower. We didn't get the big move over, not a very big bodied candle over. The volume on the daily was fine, but in my opinion, the Bulls are or the Bears are still very much in control from this last earnings. So something to not get faked out about on Delta. Costco trucking on up, still trying to complete that long. I'm looking for it to long up to 766, and it's still going. No reason to think that it wouldn't continue to go. Whoops. This again would be the system that we've been watching here for a push up to 766. And look at her go. Lockheed ranged, sitting sideways in a downtrend, essentially on the monthly. Let's take a look at the weekly. A long-term uptrend, but short-term downtrend. No convincing moves over previous highs. Gap to the downside. Actually, wouldn't mind looking at a possible short as it pulls into this gap right here. Maybe around 443. Look for a short around that mid. And put my stop right on the other side of that gap and look for it to target this previous low down here. But again, long-term uptrend, short-term downtrend. So I'd continue with the short-term downtrend and look for a long into the long-term uptrend here, which you could say is somewhere, right about there. Okay. NOC, Northrop Gunman. Ruman. Broadening formation to the break to the upside on the weekly here. The retest, push up. Now it's got to the gap to the downside. The Bulls bought the dip though here. Looking at the volume, the Bulls still feel in control. There's a lot of sell volume back here from January, but right now it looks like the Bulls are trying to regain that momentum. I mean, it feels like it might want to go back up there. I would look for a break above one of those two trend lines for it to continue to the upside. But it's a pricey stock. I don't know if people are going to be getting that very much. Splunk. See, here's what I'm talking about with unconvincing moves over a previous high. So it got the push up, and then just like these, like it doesn't really want to be there. I don't think it really wants to be there based on this move. Like for the months, like the volume is dying off. I would feel comfortable looking at something like a short on this. Wow. I'd be comfortable looking at a short on that. It's tight, but it never got to push over that March high convincingly. Like it's just, I mean, look at that. That's not a convincing price action move, in my opinion. However, I mean, it is showing that they're accumulating up here for whatever reason. The volume hasn't completely died off. It's still around. It's lower. It's much lower than the push that got it up there. But it's just sitting there. There's no convincing move over that high. So that would make me think that it might have some issues here. So if it has earnings coming up, which you mentioned that it does, it's in a few days. I don't know. That's a whole lot of room to the downside that it can make a move to. I mean, looking at the rest of the earnings, they haven't had a red earnings since 2021. I mean, I just look at the heavy hitters and the indexes, but HWM, How I Met Your Mother. Yeah. To the moon, baby. Cowboy hat in the air. Zoom. I would just get puts on this thing. Honestly. So, maybe it makes just kidding, everyone. Why would I disrespect Zoom like that on Zoom? Right. I mean, it is at the bottom of this area. I mean, and it got a nice bounce to the upside. I mean, here's the thing about Zoom though. I don't know what they're going to do from here, right? I feel like they've already peaked, which is why their stock is no longer $500 a share, right? I feel like they already peaked. They've already got their stuff in everybody's computer. Everybody already uses Zoom. Everybody has it installed on their phones, on their desktops, everywhere companies have it. And that's it. Like, that's it. Now we're down here. Microsoft Teams died or Microsoft Teams killed Zoom, because both are kind of true. Like, I don't see the value in Zoom, honestly. So could it make a push up to the upside of this wedge in the 70s? It could. I think a breakout to the downside would be more likely, in my opinion, just because I don't see the value there. Doesn't mean the value isn't actually there. Apparently, Norberto thinks that, or knows, or has seen that. What was it? Where did it go? That they're coming out with Metaverse conference. Okay, I mean, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, like, I, how many people do you know that are in the Metaverse right now? I know absolutely, and you can't see because I don't have my webcam on, zero people with Metaverse VR headsets. I know zero. So, no, probably not. Why would they when they could just use Zoom and have their real face instead of Meta's messed up avatar of people? Right. It feels like kitty stuff, right? I'm not going to hold a business meeting in the metaverse. Like, it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to meet I'm not going to meet an investor or somebody who wants to talk money in the metaverse. Like, I'm going to go in the metaverse to, know, explore fun things and make fun of kids. CLSK. Could be. Clean Spark on the rip to the upside has been continuing. Volume is dying off. Makes me think it might want to come back down, but it did get an inside week there, which means we got a big up month with lots of volume there. See, that's what I'm talking about. Big body candle over the previous swing high. No little piddly stuff. This is a monthly chart too. Volume increasing. I mean, look at that volume just go whoop right on up. I honestly think Clean Spark at least wants to try this next high at 2360. I think it's at least going to try that based on this. I mean, look at this volume. The volume is nuts on the monthly. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I'd probably just get shares on. I wouldn't worry about. See, here's the thing about swinging. Like, I don't mind swinging so much, but what I what I hate is watching my money disappear to theta. Like, I hate that. Okay, so something like this where I think it might want to make a bigger move long term. I mean, I could get leaps, sure. I could get out the money leaps. I could even get in the money leaps and not have to worry so much about theta burn. But the fact of the matter is, it's still there. And if Clean Spark drops for some reason down to $5, I still have shares in the company. I can still average down. Uh, I can still do something versus just watching my money disappear to theta out the window. So I wouldn't mind grabbing more shares of Clean Spark. I think I don't remember which one of the analysts had alerted it, but there's definitely something going on here based on the volume, and it's not accumulating. It was accumulating back here in February of 2023 to around October 2023. Now it's getting the breakout. People are interested. There's something happening here. So I'd look for some more upside on CleanSpark. Melly. Melly. Uptrend. Actually, let's just channel it. Let's just channel it here. That makes a bit more sense for a channel because we got more hits over here. It looks like it wants to come back down, in my opinion, based on this weekly chart. Here's why. So we've got our breakaway gap, our measuring gap, our exhaustion gap, the pullback, the push up to a new high off of an exhaustion gap. And now we've got another gap and then another gap. So I might have been wrong. Let's see how this projects out. Pick up, clean up, put away. Okay, so it hit that target. Now it's pulling back. Hitting more now. So if we measure this one, duplicate that out. It puts us just shy of 2,000 or just over 1,900. I really like these pullbacks into the gaps. I don't like how big this pullback was, but I feel like this could be a nice spot for a possible long. It's a 4-to-1 risk reward to the next price target. See you, Liam. I don't know. I mean, and this is a $1,600 stock. I assume their options premiums are ridiculous. So take that for what it is. I don't need to go that far out the money with enough time is still going to be ridiculously expensive, in my opinion. But we wanted to get like a single share, $300 move, not too shabby. But that's what I would be looking at on Melly right there. It looks like it wants to break out of this channel, like it wants to try and get out. You got the push up, the pull back, 3 gaps, boom, boom, boom. Starting a new run here after some consolidation after the extension, pushing up, getting the pullback. Looks like it wants to make that run, in my opinion. Whew. There's a lot. A lot of tickers. Let's take a look at futures right now. Getting the pullback, trying to triangle out here. Looks like you might want to try and make a move. RBMS, sure. And then I'm going to bounce because it is getting late. What is this? Should probably type in the right ticker number, huh? So there's that gap again coming into play. Hold on here. We go to the monthly. Bouncing at that order block. That's a nice move. I think it wants to come back down, Roberto. I think it wants that 48 price target. Reason being is we got the buyers that came up here, but it wasn't really enough to break it out. It didn't even get the breakout over that previous high until this candle right here on much less volume. And then I got the reversal. So now I got the pullback to the order block on the monthly, and it's just kind of sitting there right now. But I think if it breaks under that 50, we call it 54 and a half. I think if it gets a break under 54 and a half, it's going to want to break to the downside. Yeah, 54 and a half, almost right on the money there. So my main stock for tomorrow, man, if I had to choose, I would be looking at um probably Amazon for a breakout over that 176 mark, as well as what was the other one? Was it Google? Google try to break over that trend mark on the 1 hour. Nvidia, I'm assuming, is just going to keep going up at this point. I don't even care about it right now. And banks just keep ripping. It doesn't really seem to be any stops in banks right now. So those would be my three main stocks: Amazon, the Googs, and the banks. And Soyun. See if that can actually get some follow through. I took some shares off as it pushed up last week above 4. I was really wanted 4.5, but it never got there. The volume is still there. The interest is still there. They're accumulating it down here at this area. It's a nice accumulation zone right there. Starting back here in January. A year ago, they've been building these shares. Be interesting to see what they do with them. What am I watching on the whales? Let's take a look. Some interesting flow on CCJ 45 calls for March 1st. Looks like some whales picked up some positions there. It's about 300,000 into that. Somebody picked up $400,000 in Yelp puts for May 17th last week. So YELP 35 puts for May 17th. Also something I have my eyes on. And let's see. There's a lot of money in plug 450 puts for March 15th. At this point, there's a couple $1 million into those puts. And like a good portion of it is longed. And as plug comes into earnings, like they're pushing into all-time lows here. So these 450s are in the money now. So they're not even a thing as far as like deteriorating. But I'm feeling like I'm watching these 450 puts to see if they take uh, profits and close them out going into earnings this week. which is Friday. Goldman, yeah, Goldman, I think, is trying to get that push up. It's in this shorter term broadening formation on the weekly. Still can't get the convincing close over that high, but it did get finally a close, which is essentially what we're looking for. Got the break to the downside, the push to the upside, the broadening formation. This would be something that I'd be looking forward to pull back into this area, like 388 for a long, back up to 400. That's what I'd be watching for. Mara ranged here on the 1 hour. Nothing really to write home about there. Yeah, if it drops below 2280 again, I think you're looking at sub 20, maybe even like close to 17 on Mara, just based on that 1 hour chart. What's the weekly look like? They get a break to the upside, but nothing super nice. They get that close. Well, if it breaks below 22.6, I'd look for some downside into sub 20s. And if it can get a break above 25, 25, just to be safe, I think it could get a nice push continuation back up to the 30s. What's Bitcoin look like? Bitcoin's getting tight up there. Nice range as well. It's at the 50% mark. Yeah. So Bitcoin on this big push up, moving sideways. Excuse me. Ugh. Moving sideways on Bitcoin. Like it's accumulating up here. It hasn't, now it needs to either break to the upside or the downside of this accumulation zone. I would assume to the upside, but I would rather wait before taking a push up. Mara Daily looks like an inverse head and shoulders. Good night, Norberto. No, I mean it looks more like a cup, honestly, but like that. Even that is even that's pushing it. I mean, I really don't see any structure that I enjoy on this, honestly. So, yeah, no problem. There's nothing else. Let me know what you got. 6, 7, 8. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'll get this posted on YouTube either probably tomorrow. I'm pretty tired tonight, and we'll get it going, and you can look back at it, and I'll try to get it out tomorrow morning before open, if I can. So Celsius, yeah. I mean, it's got the breakout of this channel. Got me stopped out there. So it very much looks like it got a nice breakout here. It's like a nice measuring gap. So if we project that, boom to boom, boom to boom, it puts us at a new high around 71. What's their flow look like? Premium. I can't really tell. It looks like there's a lot of open interest on the 315.60 calls, but it looks like it was a broker trade. which means it could be anything, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. Thursday, not too bad. Taking a look at this, I would really like to see a pull back into this gap and a test of the trend line. To be honest, trend line before that push. So that's what I would be looking at. Whoa, calm down. All right, well, someone must be on my laptop upstairs because it keeps getting disconnected. All right, everyone have a good night, and I will see you in the Discord. Take care.